Hey guys, Dra here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm going to be talking about my most owned authors. This doesn't necessarily mean that I've read all their works. This just means that I own a whole bunch of the author's works. My list consists of 4 authors, so I'm gonna go from least to greatest. I won't talk about the books I'll be showing, but I will be talking about the authors and why I love them. So without further ado, let's just get started. The first author I'm going to talk about is Sarah Dessen. Here are all the books that I own from the Sarah Dessen collection. I have 8 without including the duplicate, which is Saint Anything. Then I have What Happened to Goodbye. Now these next few ones are kind of like the old covers. So I have Lock and Key, That Summer, The Truth About Forever, Just Listen, Along for the Ride, and Dreamland. I discovered Sarah Dessen at the end of my Twilight days, mostly because I felt like nothing could compare to Twilight back then. You know, my younger self was like, Twilight was the best book out there, nothing compares to it. I decided to go on a contemporary binge, and the author that I absolutely adored was Sarah Dessen. The first book I read from her was This Lullaby, which I actually don't own a copy of. Now, the reason why I read that book was because of my creative writing class. Every Friday in my creative writing class was to read a book the entire period, so that is why I chose Sarah Dessen's This Lullaby. The reason why I love Sarah Dessen's books is because of the romance. I absolutely adore how she writes the romance, but then again, there are times where it just pisses me off. But at the time when I was younger, I thought it was like the best romance ever. Putting the romance aside, Sarah Dessen writes about a lot of very controversial issues. She writes about rape, she writes about drugs. Dreamland is about being in an abusive relationship and doing drugs. That is why I love Sarah Dessen, because she doesn't shy away from those controversial issues. Though I do feel like sometimes she doesn't portray things correctly, but I still love her, and she's one of my favorite go-to summer read authors. And the next author I have here is Sarah J. Maas. If you see it shaking, it's because I do not have the upper body strength for this. The first 7 books I own from Sarah J. Maas are Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, which I have to say, this is like my favorite cover ever. I absolutely adore the colors. Empire Storms, not my favorite cover. Tower of Dawn, and Assassin's Blade. And in the ACOTAR series, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, which is my favorite one in the entire trilogy, and A Court of Wings and Ruin, which had a very unsuspecting, unlikable ending. Though I thought the ending was anticlimactic and the ending was wide open, I realized it was left that way for the next 3 books that are coming out. So like I said, I own a duplicate of A Court of Wings and Ruin. Not counting the duplicate, I have 10 Sarah J. Maas books. What I like about Sarah J. Maas is her writing. I think she has beautiful writing, and she creates really badass characters. She knows how to weave storylines together, but as you're reading them, they don't make sense, but later on, towards the end, you're like, oh my god, that is why it happened, or oh my gosh, I can't believe this makes sense now. I think she's considered the fairy queen. I don't know who's considered the fairy queen anymore. I think I've said it about Holly Black. I think I've said it about Sarah J. Maas. The only book I have not read from the Throne of Glass series is Tower of Dawn. Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series, I like to consider her books like true, like heavy fantasy. Her books were the first ones I actually read where it wasn't in the real world, like it's a make-believe world. Books like The Shadowhunter World and Vampire Academy, those books I consider fantasy, but not high fantasy because it is in the real world. Like Shadowhunter World takes place in New York, Vampire Academy takes place in Montana, so it's easy to imagine those places and know where they're at. Aurelia is actually a make-believe world that she created, and it was really fun trying to picture the way she pictured things. The next author on my list, with a total of 13 books, if we're not counting the duplicate, is Cassandra Clare. I own City of Bones, which also the duplicate is the tie-in movie edition. This is actually the first copy I bought of the book, and I read, I believe, up to like page 100 when I decided to say what the hell and buy the entire box set, which is in hardcover. Then I have City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, which has a lot of stickies, City of Heavenly Fire, Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, Shadowhunter Codex, which I have not yet read, and I absolutely adore because when it's naked, the cover is like velvety smooth and it has the Mortal Cup. So also it has drawings and then it has writing in it as if like little conversations from Jace and all the other characters. Then I have Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, which I read every individual novella but decided to get the bind-up because really, I love Simon. This is basically like City of Simon. And then the next two books that I have here from Cassandra Clare, I still have not read, and that is Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows. I really adore Cassandra Clare's writing. I love how she does her characters. They're so funny and sarcastic. I'm always laughing. Always laughing. A day does not go by where I'm reading a Cassandra Clare book and I'm just laughing out loud. And I get some weird looks from people and I just can't help myself because Cassandra Clare has that way to write sarcastically. And then she also has this way of her that when things are getting really dark and serious, she throws in a little bit of comedic relief, but it's not misplaced. Like, she times it appropriately. And character-wise, she has a lot of diversity in race and LGBTQ, and I think that's like really amazing. Now, the first time I read The Mortal Instruments was 4 years ago, so the way I read them the first time was The Mortal Instruments up to City of Lost Souls, then I read all the Infernal Devices series, then I read City of Heavenly Fire, and then I read Shadowhunters Academy. And now I have to read Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows. And those two are monster books for me. And sometimes they're very nerve-wracking for me because I feel that if I start reading huge books like that, it'll make me slumpy. So I'm really scared. So that's why I'm taking my time reading everything else before I get to Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows. And the last author is my most owned author. I own a total of 14 books without counting a duplicate. And I'm sure you've all guessed it. And the author that I owned most of is Richelle Mead. So I own the entire 6-book series of the Vampire Academy, and the duplicate being the first book in the movie tie-in edition. So without counting this one, 14 books. So I have Vampire Academy, Frostbite and Shadow Kiss, Blood Promise and Last Sacrifice and Spirit Bound in the Vampire Academy series. Then I own all the books in the Bloodline series, which is the spin-off series to Vampire Academy. In this one, we follow Sydney Sage, an alchemist. So it was not my favorite series. I feel like people who really adored Adrian would really enjoy the Bloodline series. See, I have Bloodlines, Golden Lily, Indigo Spell, Fiery Heart, Silver Shadows, Ruby Circle. Now, these next two books are also from Richelle Mead that I have not read yet, and I bought them because Richelle Mead is one of my auto-buy authors. I actually haven't gotten neither of the second one of these ones because I'm on a book buying ban, and I haven't read them, so I'm not sure whether or not I will continue with them. And the first one is A Glittering Court, and then I have Game Board of the Gods. This is her adult sci-fi novel. I have not gotten to it yet, but I will soon. The reason I love Richelle Mead is because I love what she does to her characters. She has snarky characters, she has lovable characters, she has fantastic romance, and the writing is not all that great. A little bit in the Bloodline series, like you can tell that her writing has been evolving. Now, Vampire Academy, by all means, is not the first series that Richelle Mead has worked on. She has other series that I have not yet read. I think she has like a Succubus series or something like that. Richelle Mead has a great way of writing strong, badass characters as well. Richelle Mead is just an amazing person. I absolutely adore her. And I believe a little bit of the author's personality goes into their work. So those are my most owned authors. Now I have to go and fix my bookshelves now because I made a mess. That is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below whether you guessed what my number one is, and let me know what your number one most owned author is. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more of my face, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!